This is the Power Platform Daily Brief from CRM Audio for Friday, July 12th, 2019. What you need to know about the Power Platform today in 10 minutes or less. I'm Brad Kuntz. Andrew Magnotta, thank you so much for joining us for the Friday Power Conversation.
My pleasure, Brad.
Andrew, you're a TSP in the Northeast. I know that you've been pushing Power Apps and Dynamics to the customers up there. Tell us, how did you get there? How did you get to the position that you're in, and what kind of tools were you using to get there?
Started way back when. My first job out of school was for a little hedge fund in New York City as basically help desk support. And they had a sales team that was all around the globe, and they were looking for a way to manage their customers. And we used to get those MSDN CDs, and got the one that said CRM 1.2 one day, and went in, installed it on a local server, got it up running, showed it to my boss and a couple of sales reps, and they were like, hey, this at least gets us to what we needed. Obviously wasn't full blown, didn't have all the bells and whistles that we're starting to see come out of the product today, but it had some of those basic core concepts. Fast forward a few years later, I was a business analyst working at PNC Bank here regionally in Philadelphia, and was working on the proprietary CRM system that they had. And then they started to go through, that group was going through a buyout with BNY Mellon, and that's when I got hooked up with Customer Effective, our old team down in Greenville. And things kind of took off from there. So that, you look back on fondly the Customer Effective days, our counterpart Seven, and so a lot of the other guys that are on a lot of these podcasts that we all listen to every day, grew from that team. From there, I worked on just a ton and just different customer engagements with Customer Effective, a lot of great projects, met a lot of great people, and then worked for a couple of different partners after I had left that group, and then now found myself at Microsoft for the last year and a half, like I said, working as a TSP, and really just excited about pushing the Power Platform and the Dynamics platform as it is today to our customers.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's I did not know that part of your origin story where you had a disk that had 1.2 on it. That's great. I think you're the first person to to talk about that kind of install. So you've seen this platform grow kind of in fits and starts, and certainly where it is today is a lot different than it was back in the 1.2 days.
Absolutely. The whole introduction of the cloud side of the business and having everything online, and obviously Satya's influence on all that, just put that entire platform, what was XRM, up front and center, and it's just been amazing since then.
That's great. So let me ask you this. So I know that you're frontline, you're talking to customers. I think a lot of customers, when we talk to them, they have a really good idea about, what are the workloads necessary that would drive a customer to, adopting a Dynamics 365, whether it's F&O or customer engagement or whatever. Those are pretty cut and dry. How do you talk to customers about the Power Platform when you may not even know what the business problem is that needs to be solved, right? Because we're bringing them a really powerful tool set sometimes without first knowing what the business problem is. How do you go about that with customers?
Absolutely, Brad. The first thing I think back is my business analyst days with PNC, and I was basically known as the Excel guy. There was all these spreadsheets that I would build out based on all these different factors that we were trying to, look at within that business. And every time somebody needed a VLOOKUP or a pivot table or something like that, they would come to me, and I would build all this stuff out. But it just got out of control and crazy to maintain. And I look back at where the Power Platform is now, and I'm keep thinking, if I had something like this back then, how much more powerful and empowered would I have felt in that role to be able to build a mobile application or at least secure the data in a better fashion than just putting in Excel or Access or SharePoint lists and things like that. That's the thing that I start with, and that starting conversation resonates with every customer we talk to. We have just very, very large customers. Everybody knows it today that's just still run the lifeline of their business on something like Excel. And when the audit season comes around and they start to look at, are you really still doing that in Excel? Well, yeah, it's an easy option. It has a lot of the features and it's quick and easy to do. But when we start to talk about what you have the capability to do with Power Apps, both from the Canvas side and then the model-driven side, to start to secure that, put it in something like a common data service, start to handle all that data and fit it in, that conversation just naturally rolls along into all these different scenarios. And then we can whiteboard something out and start to just break down. Here are at least a few spreadsheets maybe today that we can transition over just to get you started, train you on the right way to build these things, and start to identify maybe some users within the organization that are going to be chomping at the bit to, like I said, they're spreadsheet jockeys today. They then want to jump over to a tool such as Power Apps.
That's great. And how much are you getting any sort of feedback or even pushback around fear of creating an army of makers, right? Because that's going to create some governance issues downstream for a lot of, especially enterprise-size organizations. What's your guidance to those who feel like maybe they don't want to empower an army of makers because it might create too much governance headaches?
Yeah, every customer is different. You have customers that are more IT driven. So if the IT has the stronger hand within the IT business relationship, from the software that they get to use, the tool set that they get to use, they are the ones that are coming to us right now saying, hey, we want to control this. Like Evan talked about previously, we're rolling out things like the Center of Excellence to start to put a framework around that. But it's a loose framework because it's going to be different for everybody. And so the biggest point we just try and drive home is that the tool set's there for you. We'll help you adopt that tool set and shape it to how your organization needs to use it. And again, those things can evolve because IT leadership changes. A new regime comes in, they now don't have to look at all these tools and just say, or hey, maybe they're a lot looser on the controls that they want their users to have. Now they don't have to go and rip all those contracts up or throw all those tools away. All they need to do is reshape how they've put their platform together.
Right, that makes sense. And the new framework for Center of Excellence, I think, is excellent. We just began unpacking that for our organization, and you're right. It's a framework, and it needs organizational input and allows for organizational input to make that governance work the way that your organization works. So I think that's a great step in the right direction.
Exactly. It's not one size fits all. You're going to have to shape it. You're going to have to understand what each of those components is and shape it for your organization, but it's there.
So as part of the Friday Power Conversation, we've got a list of questions here. I'd like to ask you some of these questions that we asked most of our guests on this program. First one is the recent July 2019 release announcements. There were a number of them. We just mentioned the Center of Excellence. That was part of this last rollout. Of the announcements that came with that June 19th release, what do you think are the ones you're most excited about, or you think are going to have the biggest impact on customers?
I really think the AI builder capabilities are going to be, at least have the largest impact as far as business users who are looking at something like Power Apps for the first time and starting to drill into some of those capabilities and be able to do things like image recognition or speech recognition, things like that you wouldn't necessarily, or you would think it would take an army of developers to build an application for you to be able to harness those those capabilities. So I think once we fully understand a lot of those use cases and start to get those out in front of customers are going to start to run with that stuff. And over the next few years, you're just going to see, Power Apps rolling out left and right with those capabilities being utilized.
So next question is one we've actually had to update this question since the announcements for the 2019 updates. And as a TSP, you'll understand this question. But if you had to choose between Contoso, AdventureWorks, Fabricam, but now we have to bring back Northwind Traders for this question, what do you pick?
It's always a tough one. I actually like to go way out left field and grab Blue Yonder Airlines, just because it's different, But
I forgot about them. Yeah.
Right. See, I had to throw in a curveball, but and I remember some customers that we did have back in the customer effective days that doing engines and things like that for airlines. So it was one that we actually had a decent data set
right.
to pull from. And it's just something a little different.
And I'm going to put a link here in the show notes as soon as we post this, kind of along that same line. And this may be very well known, but I didn't know about it till this week. But there's a website called, and I forgot the name of it, but I'll post it. But it's thispersonisnotreal.com, I think, and it creates fake but real-looking pictures of people that you can populate your data sets with, so that so you don't have to worry about actually using real photos. Not to say that I would ever do that, but I have seen that happen before.
So I like to do too with our LinkedIn connector for a demo. Just right-click on an image, and then you can save that image and then just make that image. It's not one for one right now, where you can just save it as your CRM. The contacts image, but it's a quick little tip.
Yep. So next question, what is your favorite mobile productivity hack?
Favorite mobile productivity hack? I use Flipboard for news aggregation. If you've never heard of, it's basically like a news app, just to flip through the latest and greatest news, just to keep up on everything going on in the world. I'm so focused day to day on, and that includes, hashtag Power Apps for, Twitter, but just to kind of keep up with everything going on around us. That's pretty much the number one application I use on my phone.
Andrew Magnotta, thank you so much for your time today.
No problem, Brad. Thank you.
Thanks. That's all for today's Power Platform Daily Brief. Power on.